Welcome to a Homecoming Expedition podcast, where we explore what it means to come home to ourselves together. I'm your host, Rochelle Powell, and with each episode, we'll be exploring the messy, the tender, and the deeply human experiences that shape us into who we are today. This is more than just a podcast. It's a revival and a remembrance of what it is that we truly want for ourselves. It's a homecoming expedition, and you're invited. So, grab your bags, pack some curiosity, and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to a Homecoming Expedition podcast. I'm very excited because today is my first hosting episode, and I get the absolute privilege of hosting my friend, Kellie Irenee. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. And it just jarried for me that I'm your first guest, and what an honor that is. Thank you so much for having me, my love.
Thanks for coming. It's such a fucking privilege. Why don't we start off with tell us all about you and tell us how we met. Let's tell our listeners how we come to be in each other's world.
To introduce myself first, my name is Kellie Irenee. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Oh my gosh. It kind of feels like I've known you forever, but it's only been since December last year. So what is that, December, January, February, March, April, 5 months?
Oh my God.
It kind of feels like we've vibed for ages. You just feel like such a safe person for me. We met in the retreat, the alchemy retreat that Michelle Panning ran.
It feels like I've known you way longer than 5 months, as if you just did the math on that. That is mind-boggling, because likewise, there's not many people I would feel comfortable having this one-on-one initial experience with, and what's exciting is that we are both having this experience for the first time with each other, which is just so incredible. So I just want to thank you again for being so open.
Thank you. And it's so nice to be part of this journey with you. I think sometimes in life, we think experiencing things alone and individually is a big part of who we grow into who we're meant to be, but getting to experience core moments with other people and our sisters make the journey so much more rewarding.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I can't even thank you enough for letting me be your first.
Popping my cherry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for the listeners, a bit of context, Kellie and I are both, as you know, on my end, starting a podcast, and Kellie is starting a podcast too. We are on the same timeline, which has been, for me, a really big catalyst and a really big catalyst to get the ball rolling. So we'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. But first, Kellie, I want to hear about your podcast. What's it about? Why is it here? What is the thing that you are birthing? Tell us everything.
Yeah. So my podcast is called The Woman of Your Dreams podcast. And it's all about my journey in becoming the best, highest form of who the fuck I am. And it's kind of a journey as well. I think I want to show up and be that person now. And I think I expect myself to be my highest self in this moment. But realistically, it's how do you navigate life with the hopes of wanting more while at the same time be content in where you're at the moment, and appreciating that some things becoming the best version of yourself, the version of yourself that lives in your head, that gives you so much hope for the future and self motivation and inspiration. It's just a journey, and how to navigate the messiness that comes up as part of that. Life throws you curveballs, and I want to show my journey of like being a very imperfect person, feeling like I have the pressure to show up as absolute perfection, but love the gift that that brings because being messy and being imperfect has so much power to it. And I think I want to shed light in that space of it's so cool to want to be the woman of your dreams, but to be who you are in this moment and to love who you are in this moment is like equally as important. So, yeah, everything like self development, everything confidence building, everything from like embracing the messiness and imperfections of life and letting that work with you and letting that be a part of your power, then letting that be something that holds you back and prevents you from living. Because if we're stopping ourselves from living, what the fuck is the point?
Beautiful. Oh my God. Yes. The duality of like this person that I want to be had to be this person first, you know? We can't know light without the dark.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I'm on a wellness journey at the moment, and I'm thinking about like, I'm in the gym and I'm eating well, and I've got this idea in my head of like, um, what I'd appreciate my highest physical self to show up as. But I love me and who I am at the moment and who I was like months ago because I've lost 8 kilos since the retreat. I gotta love her because without her, I'm not going to get to who Kellie is 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So, yeah, it's an honor to be like recognizing that it's an honor to be Kellie in every single one of my timelines is really beautiful.
Mm, that is beautiful. And it's such a great metaphor is not the right word, but an example, you know, especially when we come to like our physical self, you know, to and I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with is, you know, loving themselves in every season physically, you know. So if it's almost like if you can learn to do that on a physical level, then you know you can do it on the rest, the emotional, the
Yeah.
mental, the spiritual.
Yeah.
So yeah, good on you and well done. Well
Thanks,
done.
girl. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like so many aspects of ourselves we can like there's so many aspects of me I'm like embracing wanting to be like the woman of my dreams in. And it's so nice recognizing that I'm worth all of that effort and time.
Fuck
Mm.
yeah, because if you're not, who is?
Right?
Mm.
And like that gets to be okay. One of my biggest fears in life is like being perceived as like selfish, but if I'm not gonna love myself wherever I'm at, who else is going to?
Yeah.
And why the fuck should anyone else?
Main character energy, baby.
Main character energy. Throwing it back to what we've learned in the retreat. Oh,
Yes, sidebar for the listeners there, what we're referring to is a course or the concept actually that, you know, if we are creating a movie, we are if our life is a movie, we are the main character. We get to choose our casting supporting actors, you know, we get to choose our supporting actors, we get to choose our outfits, our costume design, we're the director, we're all the things. So, Kellie, what made you decide to do a podcast? Tell me about that.
mm. I think I've felt a desire to express myself and to share my life and my journey with other people for quite a while. Um, and in a low stakes environment, like I got the idea to start a podcast a couple of years ago. It must have just been an idea that I just thought one day, oh, this could be a way where I can really like tell my story and show up for myself and kind of get into um social media content and whatever. I've always held like interest in that space for a long time. So I think truly it was an idea that resonated in my heart, and it's something that I felt like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do this and I didn't necessarily know how until podcasting and like content creation became what it is today. And I say it was a low stakes environment because it's so easy to simply have an idea and to think, yeah, I can do that. And to think, yeah, that's for me. That's always something I've wanted to do. And I feel like I'd be really good at it. And it's another thing to do it. And I say that because I had this idea, like I said, a few years ago, but I haven't actually taken that step to start until very recently. Um, because I've noticed a lot of imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, insecurity, deep rooted fear of, for someone that wants to share my journey and share me as a person, I have such a fear of letting myself be seen that that's really stopped me from taking that first step in for a while. But being connected with you and having conversations with you specifically has really helped me realize you don't have to make decisions from that place, and simply starting now, even if it's messy, even if I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I used to tell myself I will start when I had the perfect setup, when I've got the perfect microphone, I know what I'm doing, I can navigate all the apps. I feel like when my life looks ideal and perfect, so I feel like I'm giving people to like something to entertain them by. um and I realized that by doing that I was just putting the thing off and off and off and off. um I'm getting a bit lost now saying all of this, and like even now I'm like, aha, you already screwed up because your answers aren't like quick and precise and you're already failing.
No,
um
I'll just like help you out with that one because I had the same thought myself, but like I love the long answers and I really love like where they lead to. Like I if this episode takes a life of its own, it takes a life of its own. Like let it lead where it's gonna lead.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes too, we have an image of what things are in our head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think as well why I was procrastinating this for so long, because my podcast and sharing myself online really truly became this fantasy in my head of, this is something I can think of that kind of can inspire me and motivate me, that can bring me out of like deep depressive episodes, because it's this fantasy, it's this thing that gives me hope, like this thing of, I can see my purpose being in this thing in my head. However, if I took that step to actually bring that to life, and if I'm witnessed in messing up, then there's no more fantasy to live up to, and I'm faced with like the reality of the situation.
Mm.
So I think it's so like beautiful to embrace imperfections and the messiness of life coming up in the moment, rather than just to pretend they don't exist. And I think it's also like, that's relatable.
Mm.
That's what people,
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel like that's what people want to see. No one wants to see you when you're living in your fucking mansion and everything's perfect. They want to see you and like witness you in the journey.
Absolutely. There's this trend that's happening at the moment that I'm sure you've seen where people are doing, social media is not real. And then they're doing like 10 photos of what their life actually looks like. And it's dirty bathroom mirrors and it's the double chins with the bed hair and I love it. I'm here for it because it's so you're so right, like it's easy to get stuck in, oh, I can't do it until things are perfect or until I have the perfect environment. Because when you log on, you're seeing everyone's perfect fucking environment.
Yeah.
Mm.
Social media is a highlight reel of what people want you to see about their life. They have full
Hmm.
control. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna go ahead and call myself out a little bit here too. Like I'm sitting here with two computer screens in front of me, a phone camera, lights, like all the fucking things. And for me, Like I was very aware that like in the setup for this podcast, like I didn't need this stuff. But there was a part of me that's like, no, Rochelle, you need this. You need it. And I did all the research on like camera lighting and all of these things, and that was coming from a place of the perfectionism for me. You know, it was like the only way that I felt safe to start is in this control as many things as I can. Yeah. So just
But realistically, starting can look like me being in my pajamas and we're just having a chat on a Sunday morning together, and like
absolutely.
we're on our phones taking as much time as we need, like in between like recording and asking questions, and we're
Mm-hmm.
like guiding each other to, like our deep breaths at the start of the episodes to like
Yeah.
really bring ourselves into the situation. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's like truth in that too. Like, can I say it's so okay to want to do the research and want to show up as best as you can in something. But sometimes, like, showing up where you're at now is what you need to do to get to that level of now I know exactly how I want my lighting to be. I know exactly what I want to, because it's like you've already gone through that journey of
Mm,
experiencing something and allowing yourself to experiencing that, like that thing, without expecting it to be a certain way. Like
yeah,
you get to your episode hopefully being exactly where you want it to be without starting now and taking this time to figure that out.
absolutely. So, I wanted to bring up the theme of jealousy. So, we've had this conversation in our DMs before. So, I know we're on the same wavelength around it, which is really exciting because I feel like it's not really talked about. It's not in my algorithm anyway, you know? Like jealousy is something that I used to see as like a really bad thing about myself. Like if I'm jealous of someone else, like I'm bad. Like I'm inherently bad for being jealous of this person, you know? So I wanted to shed some light on it in our dynamic because for me, when we were doing our reunion phone call after the retreat where all the girls were on there and you had mentioned that you wanted to start a podcast, I remember feeling like really jealous of that, like really taken back. And it was in that moment and another moment later where friends in my home life had mentioned something similar, and I felt the same feeling. I was like, why am I feeling jealous of these people? And so for me, jealousy just tells me that the other person is doing or has something that I want. And so in a way, you were a catalyst for me to like recognize that, hey, this is actually something that I want. You know, like prior to that, it was a passing thought. Only one person in my world knew that it was something that I wanted to do. But what came after that thought is, well, Rochelle, you don't have a business, so you can't start a podcast. What would you even talk about? Who would even listen? Blah, blah, blah. But when I step back from that belief system and those thoughts and those feelings, it's like, well, actually, I have a lot to say. And, you know, like I always think of this friend of mine from high school. I would go and visit her and her friends sometimes. This is after high school.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, Rochelle, you've always got the craziest stories. And I was like, that's just my life, you know, just riding this roller coaster. So, you know, I think back to that moment and, you know, they would be excited to hear these stories. And I just remind myself that, yeah, I have something important to say in the world, just like I so strongly and deeply believe that everyone else does too.
Yeah, like there's a purpose in it. There's a
Exactly, you know?
purpose in our desires, and there's a purpose in jealousy.
Yes, yes, perfect. I got a bit off track there, so thank you for segueing back to the topic. No, I love it. Yeah, so I wanted to know how that showed up for you in this journey of like us starting at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. From my space, I think we're kind of opposite, because you mentioned in the video we just shot for my podcast that you it's harder for you to admit and to vocally say out loud, I want this. For me, it's very easy to voice what I want. It's hard to bring that into reality. So it was easy for me to be like, hey, I actually want to start a podcast. And when we started talking about it, eventually I kind of fell into, the endorphins of wanting this thing has worn off, and I'm faced with the reality of the situation. And I'm faced with like this fear of what if it doesn't look like what I want it to. And I remember we were in a conversation and I just completely went into this like avoidance slump of anything now to do with my podcast is just sending me off into this like imposter syndrome hole of confusion and denial and projections and shame and all of it. And I remember like you messaged me and you were like, this is actually something I want to do too. And I'm like, hey girl, amazing, awesome. And I think you were asking me about mine, but we were talking about like that, just simply the idea of starting a podcast. And I was at a space in that time where I did not reply to you for a month because anything to do with the podcast, I just had so much resistance with. But I remember like feeling connected to you at the retreat and feeling like I was putting at risk our relationship and our connection by allowing myself to feel avoidant in our conversation about that time. So I remember being in the car and just simply like putting myself on voice call and being like, hey girl, I got to call myself out here. And I'm sorry about how this sounds. And I hope you can like take it on board with and trust that my intentions are good when I say that I've point blank been avoiding this because I'm scared of not living up to my potential. Um, and you were then like, I've literally been doing the same thing. And I thought you had it all figured out. I thought you were like, you've already started filming the shit and this wasn't coming up and it was an easy journey for you. And I think we both, in that moment, our jealousy was like a gift that allowed us to connect with. We're actually both in the same space of avoidance and fear, and maybe having that conversation and embracing the jealousy is something that allows us to come out of that and to take action positively, which I think is like why we're here today now.
Absolutely. You said it so beautifully that this jealousy is a gift, and I couldn't agree more because in bringing the jealousy up and like giving it a voice and like giving it a voice to each other, that has really like helped us kind of let go of this self comparison aspect. It's like, oh, okay, like we are both in the struggles because I remember having the exact same experience when you made an Instagram page. I was like, like shit, I haven't started an Instagram page. I'm so behind, all these things. And it's so easy to sit there alone in my own head and be like, Rochelle, you're a horrible person for having those thoughts. But the truth is it's we are human and it's what we do with those thoughts. If I then go, fucking Kellie's fucking shit because she's got, like that makes me a shit person, but that's not what we got to choose to do differently. So yeah.
And I think it's funny that the reality of me starting an Instagram page to you, you assumed like, oh, look at her. She's just showing up and awesome. Whereas I made the Instagram page while I was at the hairdresser, posted it, and then turned my phone off for a few hours because it was so uncomfortable to simply put myself out there. So I think there's a lot of assumptions in here. And when we actually like can have a conversation around it, being on the same page, that's when we can actually turn jealousy into being a really positive tool for connection.
Absolutely. On the theme of jealousy, how has that shown up in your day-to-day life outside of this podcast?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. Especially now, like I say, I want to share on social media and like being in that space essentially is where I feel a lot of jealousy coming up. Like hopping on Instagram, especially being in like a wellness journey at the moment, like seeing all the hot Instagram baddie models like showing up with the perfect skin and the perfect bod, with the perfect hair and the perfect climate, in the perfect environment. I think for me, jealousy, what I assumed it to be was something that separated me from other people. It's something I'm lacking that someone else has that brings my fears of not being good enough to light. It makes me feel like I'm the issue because I want something that someone else has. But simply learning that that can be a positive thing and that can actually be data entry of, hey, Kelly, you're jealous of this person for wanting something. That actually means you want this thing. How can you get what it is that you want in a way that is kind and loving towards other people? I think jealousy, to me, it's like one of my core inner critic beliefs I've had since I was little was this theme of you are not enough.
Mm.
And when I feel jealous of someone else, I feel that part of me saying, this is something you lack that someone else has. And because someone else has this thing, they are better than you. Yeah, that's how it showed up in my life for a very long time until I actually like allowed my jealousy to speak truth into it's okay to want things and it's also okay. I think sometimes I've fallen into this trap of assuming if someone else has something, I can't have it too. Like success can only be for one person at a time. And not giving into that construct has allowed me to have a healthier relationship with jealousy because I know that if like one of my girlfriends has the thing that I want at the moment, say like um I spoke about my wellness journey, so we'll go there. Like a lot of my girlfriends have these like in my head, I'm like, you have like my dream body. I'm literally drooling over your feet at the moment. Like I think there's also space for me to be like, I'm working towards that too. And I will have that too. It's not just one person in or like on the planet that has the ideal whatever. We can both be successful at the same time. Like we can both have the thing and let that shine in our lives at exactly the same time.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're touching on a really, and this is only like unfolding as we're having this conversation for me, but like a really important point is that jealousy and scarcity are so closely intertwined because, like to take action on the jealousy or, you know, to not take action on the jealousy and just kind of fuel it in the way that, I'm jealous of them for the body that they have, and then just staying in that mindset is almost saying that they can have it, but I can't.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that to go around in the world, and that can be applied to anything outside of, our physical appearance. I think that's a really interesting thought line.
Yeah. Yeah. This idea that only one of us can have something at a time. And
Mm,
then that always made me think like maybe they took this thing from me, or maybe now I have to take this thing from them.
mm. I can't have
Because,
it because they have it.
yeah,
Now I have to take.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And that thought alone can, like, that can lead down a rabbit hole of, well, now I feel like I'm becoming a shit person. But I
yeah,
think it's so human to have these thoughts and to just simply, like, rest in them and at the same time trust I can be a good person and want what I want. And I
yeah,
can be a good person and be jealous of someone. But that was such like like an uncomfortable thing to believe for so long. I did have that thought process of now I have to take, or
Mm.
feel like if I'm lacking, it's because someone took from me.
Mm.
And I think that can cause so much separation where like connection and people helping us on our journey can ease so much jealousy to begin with.
Absolutely. Like we get the opportunity to shed light onto it instead, like when it's kept in the dark and it's like I'm jealous of this person, I am inherently bad for that and we're going to keep that to ourselves and we're going to, compile the shame. Like, yeah, it's how do you come out? How do you come out from that shame hole? It's like I have to take.
Mm,
Or have this conversation, shed some light, give the jealousy a voice. What is it telling me? Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
incredible. So, going back to your podcast and becoming the woman of your dreams, what does becoming the woman of your dreams look like for you?
I love this question because I think if you would have asked me that a year ago, I wouldn't have known what to say. So I think in a way, the procrastination has been kind of a blessing because I think in some ways I had to meet you and have this connection and have the experience of the retreat to know the answer to this. And I just want to say, like, I just want to be the most Kelly I can because for so long I've been like looking at um, social media, especially like in comparison. I'm looking up to like my mentors and like people I aspire to be, assuming like, okay, when I get to their level, when I'm like them, when I'm acting like them, because I can see that I'm so drawn to like their presence, then I feel like I'm at like this dream like peak state of like who I am. But to realize that there's actually a beauty in all of us individually, now it's kind of like exploring me as a person. How can I feel in my heart this is such like a Cali way of living? How can I feel peace and content in my everyday, in the mundane, not have to think like, not, I don't want to live my life ignoring like the Monday to Friday and just living for the weekend. I want to find joys in like the Monday. I
Mm.
want to find joys in like I have 10 minutes to scoff down my food before I have to fall into a work meeting. I think it's just like, how can I live life aligned to what I feel like my purpose is as much as possible? And I feel like when I feel joy and peace, that makes me believe I'm on the right path to that. So for me, it's just feeling as Kelly as I can. I want to feel the most Kelly that I can possibly feel.
I love what you said there about the when you're feeling joy and happiness, like that's almost like a wink from the universe being like, yeah, babe, you're on the right track. Like this is it. I definitely
Yeah.
resonate with that. And, I want to highlight that whilst saying I want to be authentic is easy to say, it's not so easy to do. And I think it's a really courageous way to choose to live because
Yeah.
we have to feel through and push aside like all of the imposed ways of being, like the people pleasing and the ways that we're told we should be forever. And so it's courageous to go, actually, what is my truth in this moment? What does Kelly want? And who am I? And who do I want to be right now?
Yeah, and I love that you said that because I think for a long time I didn't actually trust that I knew how I wanted to live. So I would fall into this habit of like people pleasing and asking others, like relying on the opinions of my mom or my friends to kind of lead me into how I should be and what I should do and how I should act. And simply knowing like actually the only way I can like get the most out of life is by learning to trust myself because everyone has a different path. Yeah. Like you said,
Mm.
it's like that journey of now I'm becoming authentic.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling like I can start to like enjoy life for what it is. Up until now, I'm 27 years old. I feel like I've only just started making decisions about my own life as of recently.
I completely relate. I had this moment only a couple of days ago where I was speaking to a friend and I had mentioned a story and I said, "Oh, just like last time." And she's like, "Hang on, what do you mean last time?" And I said, "Oh, didn't I tell you?" And she's like, "No, but that's fine. That's all right." And in that moment, it was exciting for me because I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't tell her everything," which is fine and exciting because I have always been that person where it's like I gotta go tell my friend right now. I gotta go get
Yeah.
advice right now. So it was really nice to have that moment of like, oh, I'm like coming away from the version of myself that feels the need to, I don't know, like word vomit or
Yeah.
get this validation outside of myself. So, and it,
Yeah.
it sounds like we're in similar spots in that way that it's like, okay, now like this is part of the transition for allowing ourselves to do the things that we want to do, and that in this case being a podcast.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
how
couldn't agree
exciting.
more. When it's like when we live within other people's expectations, I don't think that's ever really sustainable for us.
Mm,
And I always felt this void, even in doing that, of being like, I'm making this person, this person, this person, this person, this person happy. Why do I still feel a void within myself that feels like I'm missing something? Because in my head, it's like comes from being liked and being valued and being like having meaning within other people and having an impact in their lives. It was less about me. And I
mm,
think there's so much power in actually being like, I would rather live knowing I'm authentic being who I am because that's sustainable long term and will fuel me knowing I'm on the right track than feel like I'm abandoning what it is I'm here for and like abandoning my own wants and needs just so I can commit to living my life as a supporting character in someone else's, like you said, movie and production. It's like
mm.
I've only now learned at 27, I get to be the main character. And I think experiencing this world already so quickly has been like so life changing for me, simply just to come out of, simply just to stop living for other people.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that ties in really nicely to something else I wanted to touch on earlier when we were talking about the fear of being seen,
Mm.
because to do that, to live authentically and to express our truth and put our face and our voice out there in the world is to also accept and the knowing that there is going to be people that don't like us and
Yeah.
don't agree with us. And that is simultaneously fucking terrifying as much as it is liberating to go, you know what? I don't care because then they're not my person. They're not my audience. They're not my crowd. So it's a courageous act. It really is. And I just want
Yeah.
to like take a minute to fucking celebrate you for doing that. Like,
Thank
look at us here.
Right. And I feel
Yeah.
like by doing that too, you're also releasing people that don't belong and you're making room for people that can support you on that journey. And you do find your people in that process.
Mm,
Yeah, that's good.
I'm so excited to watch your journey unfold.
I'm excited to watch yours. Yeah,
All right. So I think that just about sums it up for me. I think we covered a lot here.
I
We've
think
touched on,
we touched on some good shit.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I think choosing a title for this episode is going to be a tricky one, but you know,
You'll know when it's the right one. You'll know.
yeah, it'll be like, oh, that one that hit the
Yeah,
soul.
yeah, yeah.
So, Kelly, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes. So on Instagram, I am Kellie Irene. And on my podcast, it is the Woman of Your Dreams podcast on Instagram. And I will be uploading to Spotify and maybe YouTube very shortly.
Can't wait to see you there again. And thank you so much for coming on. This is actually like, we've talked about through the way we've talked about like how it feels and what's coming up and the punitive voice, and it is a relief to be here on the other side, knowing that we have done this thing that was so big and scary. And it actually was better than I imagined, better than I could have imagined. So thank you so much for being such an important part of this journey.
Thank you. And it's so nice to share that with you. Yeah. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of a Homecoming Expedition podcast. If you want to follow along the journey and the behind the scenes of this podcast unfolding, be sure to check out our Instagram page @A Homecoming Expedition. And I'll see you in the next episode.